Call this meeting to order.
Well, I was going to ask that Thursday night.
Okay, then I'll have it ready for Thursday.
We have public comment about anything that's not on the agenda.
Contract.
No public comment. City Attorney, unfinished business.
Okay, item C, unfinished business. Discuss policy changes to City Code, Chapter 14, special events. Representative Laird McLean, Recreation Director, recommendation, discuss.
To discuss.
So we're going to let Laird give you, go through his presentation and then discuss it at that point in time, if that's okay with commission.
Sounds good?
Thank you.
Laird McLean, Leisure Services. The Special Events Committee was tasked by the city manager to upgrade, tighten the Special Events Code ordinance. So what we did was we gathered with the city manager and the attorney, and the attorney decided she was going to rewrite it for us. And then it was brought back to the Special Events Committee. We did our changes, added stuff, subtracted stuff, sent it back to her, and then she looked it over and it came back to us, and now this is where we're at for discussion part. One of the biggest things we had to do was define what a special event is. In the old special events ordinance, there really wasn't a definition to tell us what a special event was. So basically, a special event means an organized temporary activity or series of temporary activities held outdoors or partially outdoors on public or private property that can either be viewed or heard from by more than one right-of-way of the city and open to the public or partially open to the public or advertised or an invitation. So we kind of broke it down. So basically what it means is anything that is not in the everyday life of a city, Cocoa Beach. Anything that kind of stands out in the city of Cocoa Beach, that's basically what it breaks down to. Now the Special Events Committee consists of almost every department within the city. Every department within the city we kind of gather and they kind of permit the special events. Okay, that's like every department within the city, police, fire, city manager's office, development service, we all get together to permit special events. Next page. Special events. The first ordinance was actually written back in 1995, which is a while ago. And since then, we've actually tweaked, changed things, did upgrade on the fees, that kind of stuff. So I think it's about time that we did a complete overhaul of the special events. When we first started special events, I was actually here back then. And we probably had maybe 20, 30 special events. Now, I tell you, by this year, calendar year, we'll have over 100 special events that actually come through the Special Events Committee. Over 100 special events. Now, within those, we have 12 sponsored events, which means those are the events that we don't charge for, that we actually do work, fire, police do work, but there's no fees attached to it. And those events are the art show, the Cocoa Beach 4th of July, the Kiwanis Christmas Parade. Main Street has about, I think, 4 or 5 events. The Rotary Club Christmas Parade, Memorial Day Remembrance. So there's about 12 events we have during the year that is not charged for, but we do provide service for these events. So that comes out of their overtime budget, police overtime budget, fire overtime budget, public works overtime budget. So that's something that that y'all need to look at if you want to make changes. If you don't want to make changes, it's all up to the commission as far as that. We have over 50 other special events or more. It grows every day. And as far as the other things, the weddings, we have a lot of weddings. I did this last week. And from last week till now, I think I had at least 4 more added events. So it grows on a week. So by the end of this year, we'll have way over 100, probably 110, 115 special events within the city. So I want to let you know, we do have a lot going on as far as special events. The next slide. The process with the special events. What they have to submit to us when they come to the special events. A site plan, an event plan, a safety plan. Application fee is also charged, and insurance. Those are the main things that they have to submit when they do come to the committee to get the event reviewed.
Hey, Larry,
Yes,
as far as 90 days prior to the event,
yes.
could there be exceptions for like a smaller class?
Of course, such as
Wedding-
weddings, yes.
wedding on the
Yes,
beach,
yes.
you know?
Now, 90 days is the minimum for big events. We can take it up to a year. Up to a year, we
No,
do
but I
get
mean,
it up to a year.
somebody may say, hey, we're going to Florida, why don't you guys come with us? And then all of a sudden, they're gonna be here in like a month or so with their family for a family vacation, and then one of the kids or somebody says, I think I wanna get married while I'm there, and it's less than 90 days.
Definitely, we can look at that. But the large-scale events is the ones we really
I'm
can't.
just talking about one where they, they put up the little
Yes.
pergola and some flowers and.
Yeah, that's fine. That
Okay.
is fine. We can do that. That is not a problem. That's a small event. That doesn't even really need the committee to actually approve.
But you said weddings were included.
But next thing, I have large-scale events. That's what we specific about. The 90 days is the large ones. The wedding ones, that's a small event.
Says up there.
Yeah, that's a small event. We can do that within a lot less time. Yes.
Okay, but that's part of what we got in front of us.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
didn't read every last word
That's all
of
right.
it.
That's okay.
Laird, I got a question.
Yes, go ahead.
It says 90 days here, and I don't know if this is referring to the same thing, but in section 1411 on
Yeah.
page 4, it says, is that
You're
different?
right. No, you're absolutely right. And when I did that, afterwards I did this, and I noticed some changes I had to make as far as numbers. There are some numbers I had to change, yes. Because I looked at it and I was like, it wasn't enough time. So when I looked at when they submitted the application, when the meeting was held, when the fees was due, I need to go back and make some changes in that. in the
Oh, okay,
numbers.
so this,
Yes.
you probably
Yes.
put 90.
What I have here is correct. There's some changes needed there, yes.
Gotcha.
Definitely. That's why this is just a discussion, and I will, any feedback I get, I will go back and make some changes, yes.
So Laird, why are you required 90 days? Is it, and what's the reason
For
for
the
that?
process of the fees, the process of the insurance, of getting the site plan, there's a lot involved in the process of, especially at large events, there's a lot involved. There's
Yeah.
inspections, there's a lot involved.
If somebody's gonna bring a large-scale event
Yeah.
here.
I mean, they're gonna
need more
they're gonna
than-
advertise way
they're gonna-
earlier than
They're
that,
gonna
but
need more than 90 days to even figure out they're gonna have it.
90 days is the minimum, is the minimum.
Yeah.
They can apply up to a year.
Yeah.
Up to a year, we do get events applications up to a year here, yes. Yes. 90 days is the minimum we want to have for large-scale events.
And we could tie it to a dollar amount so that it allows the smaller ones to go in sooner than 90 days. So the 90 days threshold is tied to
Yeah.
whatever, fees.
Or number of people attending.
Or number of
planning
people, some
in
metric so
attendance.
that you know that there's an avenue to get
Right.
weddings done in a week.
Yeah.
So Larry, real quick, the red line text that's in this hard copy is just the iteration with the
Yes.
attorney that's
Yes.
happened, so it's the
Yes.
second version of it?
Yeah, a lot of it is, we actually took from the old ordinance
Yeah.
too, like, there was parts in the old ordinance that were good, they were strong. So the ones that weren't strong is what we needed to upgrade.
so can you clarify what makes it a large-scale event?
What makes it a lot, the numbers of people, what they're doing, maybe a stage, maybe closing down streets, all different things like that. yes.
Alcohol.
Sorry?
Alcohol.
Alcohol would be one, yes, yes.
So anytime you have alcohol, it's always considered large-scale?
Yes, it's gonna be a big event, depending on where it's at too. If it's at let's say a business that is allowed to have that, that's fine. If it's not, if it's on public property, that's a whole different story, yes, yeah.
That was the part of the old ordinance I did think was appropriate. I mean, I understand there's some tweaks, but what was it, 1, 2, or A, B, and C? I thought that was good, establishing thresholds, and we can adjust those thresholds, whether it's dollars or alcohol or people or what.
So for example, let's say like 142.
Yeah.
Is it, since they have music outdoor, are you considering that? an
On
event?
that case, what we're gonna look at, we're gonna look at the BTRs to see what is allowed as far as BTRs. If it's outside the BTR, it becomes a special event. Yes. We need to look at their BTRs, what they signed up, what they said what they were allowed to have as far as BTR, live outdoor music, live music, whatever it is, alcohol, we'll look at that. And if that is outside the threshold of of their BTR, it becomes a special event.
So then at that point, if they're like, this is getting ridiculous, we want to do this, but we don't feel like we need a special event permit every time, then can they reapply for a different BTR for that spot, or?
I'm not sure, I'll have to get back to you, I don't know.
It would
Attorney
be
might
based
know.
upon what zoning allows.
I mean, a special event shouldn't be a workaround to get additional scope for your
So for
business tax
example,
receipt.
Jonathan's, I mean, they've been around forever. They just put out a bandstand outside, whatever. Is there a BTR
Yes.
to be?
They applied for a special event. They applied for a special event, they had a special event.
And
Does their BTR reflect the stage, is what he
Does
asked.
the BTR,
Does your BTR reflect an outdoor stage?
I don't,
If that's the
That's a-
case, are you going to make them get a special event every time they want to have a band outside their?
Okay.
if it's not on the BTR, yes, if it's not on the BTR.
So
not gonna work.
the Jonathan's BTR, I would imagine, I haven't been there in 25 years, but they had bands in there 25 years ago. They served alcohol 25 years ago. They served food 25 years ago. They
But not
played
outdoors.
pool. But if it's on their property, like if you have an alcohol license, you can extend it
But the
on
only,
your,
Well,
the only time they had, is if it's outside of their, what do you call it, their fences. If it's outside their fences, then it becomes a special event.
yeah, so it's on their
It's a
property.
special
What I'm
event.
getting at is, I mean, I'm pretty confident that when Jonathan's started out, they didn't do a BTR to have an outdoor venue.
Well, they should have it put in a permit
Things
to
have
build the
changed.
venue and then a BTR to follow it. I mean, we can follow that up and check,
Well,
but
just think of it this
You also
way.
need to check the
If they got a
zoning.
building
Yes.
permit to put that area out there, to extend their business out there, be it COVID or whatever reason they wanted outdoor space, then their business, their BTR for alcohol, bands, music,
Yeah.
extends with it.
I would
Should
just,
should reflect that.
I would suggest that you guys definitely look into the businesses right now that are doing it and make sure that they reflect that, because this could be a potential problem if you're gonna require them to get a special event if it's not in their BTRs, because I have a feeling that,
You're saying as part of the permitting process, they would have considered the current BTR and made adjustments to accommodate the new structure?
No. If they're not doing anything that's outside their current BTR,
I don't
then
know.
they
It's
just
not in
need a
their
building
BTR.
permit to make sure they build the walls 24 inches ocean high
I've
and,
just
Yes,
never
yes.
you
seen
know,
that.
and this and that.
And I know
Could
the,
have a
is it-
non-compliant.
again,
The,
they're in residential.
But if they want that property, the rest of that field does not belong to them. And if they want to have an event and get the lady that owns the field to allow them to use her property, then it becomes a special event because it's outside their property and it's outside their BTR.
well, the Development Services is working on updating the BTR as far as what is on it and so that when they do apply for the BTR or re-up their BTR, they can check off everything that they would like to have on their BTR. So they are working on that form right now, yes.
okay, because like, another example, Drift House, they have,
But is it on
music-
it's on their property,
It's on their property.
yes.
But I don't think I think they're a retail store. I don't think their BTR says that they can have parties out back, which they do. And I don't want them to have to get a special event to do their skate parties or whatever they do.
Now, I know that in the past, whenever they have something outside in the back, they have come to us.
Okay,
They have come to us, yes. I do not, I know that for a fact.
Okay, so the other thing you said, if alcohol is involved.
Yes.
So, an exception, and hopefully it's in here somewhere, if I wanted to rent out the pavilion at the regular price, including divulgence that we're gonna, have a keg, and we're gonna have food, and we're gonna have fun, then it doesn't have to go to special events committee, you just pay for the pavilion fee.
As long as you're not selling.
Right,
Not selling alcohol.
right,
It's like you're giving it away, that's fine,
yeah.
yes. If you're selling, then you need a license.
What if
Right.
they're charging like admission or whatever for,
That would have to be looked at, yes. Yes.
like, they do like these yoga things, and what if they had mimosas with the yoga classes or something? I mean, I'm just saying like, something like that.
Are you-
I know it doesn't really mix or whatever. but-
Well, if you're paying for the class.
Yeah.
And the person that's having the class just happens to offer you orange juice, vodka, or the mixture of the two, then I think that's a loophole.
I'm just saying.
It's an issue that would have to be dealt with by the state, because if you do, for instance, have a cover charge, you're actually paying for the liquor, so they would be involved. You'd have to get a one-day permit or whatever.
And like when Waterman's Challenge does their luau, when they had them there at the International Palms, okay?
Yes, yes.
They had, you paid $25 for your meal ticket, and there was a keg of beer flowing. You didn't pay anything extra for the beer, but they had coolers full of water and coolers full of soft drinks and all that also. Maybe even a
They
few.
did go through the special events. They did get a permit as far as the event.
Right,
Yes.
right. But I mean, they didn't have to have a liquor license to do it
Well,
that
you-
way.
I'm sure they have a liquor
license.
license.
But,
I'm sure they have a liquor
No,
license.
they don't.
but what
They
you're
don't have
saying is,
any liquor?
I guess what I'm
But they were
getting at
giving
is,
it, they were giving away. They won't sell it.
you're saying a large-scale event is any event that has alcohol?
I mean, they're not have alcohol, but depends on what they're doing with that alcohol. If they're selling the alcohol,
I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah.
That's what
I
you're
mean,
saying.
under state law, if you charge $25 and you get food and liquor, you need to have a liquor license to do that. Now, whether it's a one-day license, you can get a one-day license.
For like
That's
for a
easy.
keg?
Sure.
You have to have a liquor license for a keg?
Well, if you are,
Well, because you're gonna have like, you can have nonprofits and they don't have to have a license, I thought they could just.
no, you absolutely do. And it's very easy to get them, the one-day licenses.
A lot of times they operate using another organization, the
Yeah, I'm
vets
sure
or
when
a different
Waterman's
club.
did it there, they were paying International Palms who had a liquor license, so
They
Oh,
use
sure.
others, they use
I'm sure
others,
it
yes.
was all
Yeah.
legitimate. Yeah.
To answer the mayor's question, I think the verbiage of what's reasonably expected services will be required beyond those that are regularly provided. I think that's the exception for Jonathan's to not have to apply for those. I mean, it's regularly scheduled, they're not asking for city services.
Again, I think we have to look at zoning. I know the property next to Jonathan's, because I've had some conversation with the property owner. It's residential, so, or it backs up to some of the residential. We have to be very cautious on just using that property for anything. That's not saying Jonathan's, so I don't want to imply that, but I think zoning is critical on when we
Yeah.
look at what's happening. I suspect, and why would he not, the owner, whomever that may be, in that perspective, if they put in a stage, they probably put in a building permit. I'm sure it's all
Inspector.
up and inspected. So therefore, I would like to think their BTR reflects that, but we'll double check
I
that.
just want to make sure we're not going to hurt any businesses with this.
No, this is not intended to hurt any businesses. We just want to make sure it's safe and it meets the needs of the area that it's being held in.
Are any of you using a red line on this ordinance? Because unless
hard
you
copy
prepared a
red line.
red line of what We don't have a red line because it's completely new.
Oh,
There's
this has
still
got
stuff that was added.
strikeouts and new text in it, this copy here.
Yeah, mine has red lines.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, we
that's
added, the
fine.
stuff that we added is red
Okay.
line.
This
yeah.
is the
Okay.
electronic.
Yeah, we didn't change
That's
anything.
good.
We didn't change it.
Okay,
No, we didn't change anything, no.
This is Rev Dash.
Yeah.
So this is not the old special events
No, right,
ordinance
no.
with a red
Okay.
line.
No,
I just wanted
this
to
is
make
the-
that
yes,
clear.
this is the new one, yeah. All right, any other questions, or can I go on? Yep, yes?
I think you should go on.
All right, special events process. The applicant applies for the special events. There's a meeting prior to that. Then the applicant explains the vision of the event. The committee notifies and represents all the staff is there needed for the special events, police, fire, finance, everybody. Once the applicant is approved, it's signed off. They'll know exactly right then and there if it's approved or not. And the only reason it probably would not be approved right then and there is if we need more information, or if, in some matter, they want fees changed of some kind, then it would have to come back to the commission and then come back to us afterwards. So in case we need any more additional information, then it wouldn't be approved at that meeting, okay?
And this is part of our practice currently, but we're just,
Yeah.
again, just
Just-
establishing it and showing this to
Showing
you.
exactly what's going on. Time frame, special events meetings, 60 days prior in advance. 45 days prior to the event, the special events coordinator will give notice, approval, denial, if it's not given at the meeting itself. And approval requirement payment 30 days prior to the event. Commission approval. Once again, if the applicant wants fees of something changed or waived, then that is something that the commission would have to approve. We do not approve that with the committee. That is something that has to come to y'all to approve.
It's happened before.
Yes, it has happened before, and I'm sure it'll happen again, yeah. And it's up to them to set the meeting to come to a commission meeting with enough time to get back to us so we can approve the event.
And the only thing that I would again say on the waiving, again, in the budget, if we don't have the overtime dollars for that event or for a multitude of events, we're going to come back to you at mid-year or at some point in time. We'll have to identify the funds. I mean, when we budget overtime for police, fire, they budget for the events they know they have to cover, as well as normal overtime if it's fire department. So for events that we haven't prepared to cover, then that's just additional costs. That's something we'd bring back to you. Yes, sir.
So you say you're already budgeted for certain special events that you know are gonna happen, but that gets refunded by the fees that we're charging those special events.
No, those are the events he mentioned to you at the opening where it said that these are the events that we,
City sponsored.
yes.
Yes.
So we have to put that money in the budget, it's overtime also.
Okay, I just,
Sorry.
you gotta separate, that we're not talking about these other
No.
90 events.
90 events.
No,
We're just
no.
talking about the ones we already know the city sponsors.
The ones that, yeah. the
But any that
commission-
get waived would
But
decrement from
if
that
they come
budget.
before you, if anyone comes before you to waive it, then that's not something that's in the budget, which is why I think the old code, and I think this one too, doesn't have that as an option for the city manager to waive those fees. Again, logically so, because it's not part of your budget process. So as we waive those, we also have to take into account any way of refunding those or putting the monies back into the budgets for the overtime.
Yeah, okay.
So the request is, clarification, special events definition, if you're good with that. Clarification of sponsorship, as far as exemptions, the ones I told you about, and the entire process of the special event application. That's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you. How do you guys figure out what you want to be a city event or a sponsored city event? Is that,
So I think the events that we spoke about earlier on the sponsored city events would be the ones we would consider sponsored. Those are the ones that you have in the past history. I think the Main Street, their agreement, their contract talks about Friday Fest, Winter Fest. They've added Kite Fest as one of those. But, so that's a sponsorship, you put that money in the budget. So beyond that, those are definitely sponsorships. You've got the Christmas parade, the boat parade, or the Christmas boat, the art show. Those are all sponsored. So again, those monies are in the budget loaded for overtime. So if you want to call them a sponsored program, signature programs, whatever you wish to, I think those are the ones that we've just given you that as past practice, but you're welcome to add anything else if that's what you wish to do.
Do you know, or does anybody know how they came about having certain sponsored events over others?
I do not.
Do you recall?
I do not
So-
know. I do not know.
So the only events that are budgeted are A through I in the first section?
That is correct. Now, we can go and do our history. I wasn't
I
something
was just
that,
wondering if, because,
Well-
I'm sure some people want to know why some events were sponsored and some weren't.
So I was here for some of the new ones that showed up. And we looked at what's the benefit to the citizenship and the businesses, and where's the money going, whether there's any made or not on this event. And if it's nonprofit sponsored, they basically either gonna make a little bit of money or they may lose money. So, but if it's good for the city and the businesses and the citizenship, and it fits the look of what we're trying to portray, then we go ahead and give it a sponsorship.
Okay.
I think you and I have spoken, Mayor, a few times in reference to finances or using city funds. Typically, and again, I can't quote it exactly, but I know in the statute talks about municipalities, the use of those city funds have to be looked at from a holistic approach and not from one group. That's how you you physically use those funds. Again, you can decide what that might be. I would say a lot of these programs, July 4th, Memorial Day, those in theory, all of the citizens could recognize them, but I don't know if that's the latest law. City attorney might know of something that's more recent.
No, it's really up to the discretion
Yeah.
of the city commission.
What does sponsored mean? Like we pay for all of it, or we pay for some of it, or?
Right now, the definition is that you've paid for all of those specific events. So that's,
We don't pay for setting up their stages, we don't pay for this,
Fire and
that.
police.
We
no,
pay
it's
for
for
show.
city services.
So the air show's
Fire,
not
We
city
pay for the extra trash pickups and
City
extra
service.
policemen and fire department, and when it's beach events, you have extra, lifeguard safety guys with jet skis from the fire department versus just the Brevard County lifeguards.
It's any city service that you've asked, that we have control of. If we don't have control of it, it's not something that we would
And they
include
can't
as
just
sponsor.
say, we don't want those services, because based on the special events committee, they say you need these services.
With every event, the most fees are the fire and the police, with every event. So that's the cost right there.
And again, that's called out in here. So supervisors are required to be on staff to monitor and to make sure everything's handled. We found out last year, I think it was with the boat show, we had a rain event when we had a concert. If again, even though we may say it during the meetings, it's an understanding and good communication. And we had several conversations that if we would have known they were canceling the concert, we could have canceled the police that they paid for. So, but we didn't know that. I mean, so therefore the police were there for the 4 hours or 6 hours. And unfortunately, they paid for at least a portion of that. We did try to work something down with them, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. But again, those are things that they have a lead and we have a lead. A lot of times it's Laird or someone else. If they don't need a service and it's truly been canceled, and police and fire have been notified and it's something we can adjust, there might be a minimum pay, a 2 hour or some kind of block, but we could save them money if there's a
refund or
knowledge
something.
ahead of time, right?
All right, thank you. Is that it from all you guys?
I've got a question. How does the updated policy compare to other municipalities, Cape Canaveral, Satellite Beach, things like that? Did we look at those when we were rewriting?
Actually, I based this on the Mount Dora
Okay.
ordinance, and I don't know how it compares, and I don't know if Laird knows.
As
You're
far-
talking about the fees and that sort of thing?
Fees, the rules, what constitutes special events, things like that. Some of the major
The
pieces.
ones that we did find, it's pretty comparable now.
Okay.
It is comparable now. We searched Fort Lauderdale, we searched Daytona, Mondora, all different, we went all over the place looking, checking out their special events. We are pretty much in par with everybody now.
Okay,
And I did look at a lot of them, but I didn't happen to look at both sides
gotcha.
of it, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just breathing.
Oh, okay.
That's good.
Don't do that. Stop doing that.
Okay, CPAP machine over here. I'm sure we have people in the audience that would like to comment on this or have questions that maybe to ask Laird or us. Anybody? Come on down.
Hello, I'm Kenny with Cocoa Beach Main Street. Just want to bring this to your attention, a large event that was turned over to Cocoa Beach Main Street just this year, a few months ago, was Surfing Santas. Surfing Santas is not on the list. They've never paid for in the past any of the services. I do understand that it's important to pay for the services and have that help there. I think a misnomer is that Surfing Santas is a fundraiser. It's not. There's two different organizations going on there. The Florida Surf Museum is the organization that raises the funds and makes the money and then decides the donations there to be made to whatever organization they want to donate to. The Surfing Santa element of it is technically not even a 501c3. It's just an event. So there is no, the fundraising that we're having to do now is to put on the event. Surfing Santas was turned over to us on October 15th with no money and a $15,000 bill to put it on. The cost of the stage is very expensive because they have to take all the pieces of the stage hand by hand. The entertainment is paid for by Surfing Santas. The porta potties, which we're putting out this year that have never been city, invoice for those additional services that it was shocking, to say the least, because that had never been implemented any time in the past. So to add to the city-sponsored event, I think you all should agree that Surfing Santas is a community event. You could tell by the outrage when they just wanted to move it down the street to a different beach. So that's how I got turned over to Cocoa Beach Main Street, because it will stay here.
So can you just stay there for a second?
Uh-huh.
Laird, can I call Laird back?
Yes, sir.
Can I call Laird back to the witness stand? So Laird, you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth?
Maybe.
Okay. So please tell me that on Christmas Eve, that the whole city wasn't sleeping for the last 5 Surfing Santa events and didn't even realize that the event was going on and turned a blind eye or didn't even know about it and didn't have to get a special events permit and didn't have to pay anything.
No. They did get a special events permit,
Right.
but then the fees was waived beyond me. I did not have any control of that.
The prior city manager waived those fees. Again, the policy doesn't give the city manager authority to waive the fees, but
There was a permit. There was a permit
Okay,
submitted, yes.
so
They went through the process.
previous city managers have just waived the fees. But what we just talked about here was, if you want your fees waived, you come to the commission,
Exactly.
Unless you're on this list.
Exactly.
unless you're already a sponsored event.
that is correct.
So I think it's a better idea, and shame on those city managers. I mean, it's a great idea because it just saves a step because it probably would have been approved by the city commission anyway. Okay? And we can't make any decisions tonight, but Kenny, in your best interest, you know, write up the request and get it on the agenda. Like, if we can get it on before 9 o'clock on Thursday morning, per our policy, we can take it up Thursday, and then you'll know that you don't have to pay all that money.
Okay, I sure will. Thank you.
Okay? Now, I can't say that it's gonna get approved, but that's the process.
So it wouldn't add it to the list until
Yeah.
you include it in
Yeah,
the
not-
policy, yeah,
It would
right.
be a
appreciate
policy change, it'd
just
be
the
ordinance
opportunity.
change.
Yeah,
Just part of
and
this
you're welcome to
rediscussion.
work
We would
with,
redline it in before this.
you're
was
welcome to
approved.
work with the city manager or Lori or the assistant city clerk to get the right language in it so that it's all hunky-dory.
Okay.
And Thursday's a cutoff for that night?
9 o'clock Thursday morning
You
is the
can't
cutoff for
add
that
things
night.
to the agenda.
That's moved back since Tuesday at 9. Used to be Tuesday at 9, now it's Thursday.
Tuesday at 9 would have been for today, but Thursday at 9 for.
Okay, here's how it
Got
works.
it. The day of.
We, or anybody else in the city that wants to put something on the agenda, the regular agenda for a commission meeting, is supposed to get it in by Tuesday of the week before the meeting, so that staff can look at it and have their meeting on Friday to set the agenda. But per our policy, you can make changes up until 9 o'clock in the morning. That's why you saw these additional attachments come out and stuff.
Got it.
So it wasn't a big change to the agenda. And if it was something so big that you just thought it was too much of a rush, then you can just, when we approve the order of business for the agenda, you can say, I'd like to table that or take it off the agenda. And if you get the approval from the commission, it comes off.
Got it.
Do you guys want to talk about that a little bit? Or as far as
Mainstream or?
as far as the serving Santa stuff, is that something you
In
guys?
terms of adding it to the
No,
list
no,
itself,
we're
or
not-
what?
we're not supposed
In
make a
reference to
decision.
adding.
Not making a decision,
You
but I
can-
mean, I kind of want to
you
get a
can
feel
just
of
talk
what you
and you
guys,
can
what you
just-
guys are thinking about it.
It's been waived in the past, it sounds like, at the discretion.
Well, I'm not saying that that's a precedent, but the event has proved itself over the years.
It sure seems like.
And it's gonna be better this year than ever, because we're gonna have portalettes. I'm telling you,
Using
people are
the
gonna love that. I mean, you don't wanna, you definitely didn't wanna walk into that bathroom in Coconuts at 11 o'clock on Christmas Eve.
But yes, if you wish to consider that an event, then knowing that ahead of time, because it's not a budgeted item,
We're
so.
gonna have to figure out where to come up with the money.
Right.
The citizens are gonna be paying for it. I mean, I imagine a lot of them.
Well, they have been
they were
for 5
very-
years.
They've also showed their support by all their donations as well. I mean, people are very into it. So it is something to consider. But the fact too is we don't have it budgeted, so where are you gonna pull that? I think we should pull it from the greenhouse gas study fund.
So,
I think that's up to you.
in the
Don't
past,
get me started.
in the past, and I'm trying to get the previous city manager and managers or whoever and out. In the past, the city manager had a budgeted fund of, like, I think it was, I remember at some time it was like $15,000 of discretionary money. Not I know you can approve things that are in the budget.
Yes, sir.
Within the budget for I think we're up to like 25,000 now before it has to come to the commission.
So we're at 50,000. so yes.
50,000, okay. But the city manager had a discretionary fund of like $15,000 in the past where they could spend on things they thought were important. It was like a kitty.
So I don't have a kitty, I don't have discretionary funds, so
Okay.
we,
Well, they have that
they may
in
have
the
had it
past.
in the past, but we don't have it.
So what I was thinking is they said, okay, I'll spend my $4,000 out of my discretionary funds and just let this go.
So I think in the past, a lot of, areas I've been, again, there have been open positions. So if you have open positions, you have some savings, in those divisions, especially police and fire where we have heavy costs during this time. I will say that, that's not something we necessarily have right now. We don't have open positions in fire department. We still have the cost of the apparatus to move it out there. So there is some cost there to assets when I say apparatus. And then police department, there's an open position, and there's, maybe one in communications, or a couple in communications because you funded those for January, but those dollars don't become available. But again, it's something we can bring back to you at mid-year if that's what you choose to do. And we'll adjust it at that point in
Well,
time.
we can-
As long as you've approved it, I'm
If
okay.
we decide we want to, we'll see how the vote goes on Thursday. And then if it says to create a new sponsored event for that, and please put the location in it for the sponsored event, and run by Main Street, okay? So it can't just all of a sudden switch hands, and now they get it for free, and it's some profit organization, So then get that worked out in the future. But when you look at the numbers, if it's a good weather day, I don't know. Who wants to estimate how many people were there left? That's at least 5,000.
Last year, not so much, it was cold.
Last year was cold, but there's still a good crowd.
There was times when it was, I believe, greater than 5. But anyway, it's basically $1. We're basically donating $1 per person to come to Cocoa Beach and help our businesses and have a good time and show a good light on our city. I mean, you can't pay TDC to do that kind of advertising for us for $5,000.
Again, it's just knowing what you wish to do. So if you're going to include it as in the policy going forward as a sponsored event, that would be good to know so we can include it in next year's budget.
Well, we got time to do that.
We do. So just knowing the direction that we're going. I know, the event, I think, under Main Street's going to grow a little bit. So I think that's a good thing. The challenge with that growth is also cost to manage it. But again, it's going to grow. So that's a positive thing for the community.
Well, we can cap how much we're waiving.
You can.
We
And
can
it was
say,
in the,
okay, we're gonna cap 5,000. So if they come back next year and say we need 6, we need 7, or we need 10 because we're doing a whole bunch of new stuff,
It's not a blank check.
then they need to know that they gotta figure out a way to cover those costs, either by use fees by whoever's using these, whatever they're gonna do, or whatever. I would say the initial sponsorship should be 5,000, that'll cover them for this year. And then they'd have to come back and ask for more if they increase their sponsorship in the future.
All right, does that wrap it up there for that one? All right,
And
so,
that's actually a lot, because for the whole air show, with Thunderbirds and everything else, we only gave them $5,000. And that drew a heck of a
well, they
lot.
only need 4,067. Anyways, item 2.
okay. So again, before we finish, if I may, we'll red line again, put this back and send it back out to you all to look at again, because we've heard quite a bit tonight. And again, make sure we're going down the right road as to what you direct.
Actually, we got one more. Mr. Tumulty.
Thank you, Mayor. Tim Tumulty, Cocoa Beach. Just want to give you a history from my understanding of the special events and how they got paid for. The art show, we'll start with the art show, which has been around now 60 years. 10 years ago, in 2014, the previous group went to another location, and the current group that's running the art show, which is Cocoa Beach Art Show Inc., Steve Romano is the president, I'm the vice president. We have other various board members. Kenny is also on the board. We've been running that now for 10 years. When we started, the city was taking care of all the services and paying the art show an additional $5,000 cash toward the event. Once we took over, the new group took over, the second year, I made a motion that we didn't need any money, or that the art show didn't need any additional money, just the services. And so the city's been taking care of the services, police, fire, and whatnot, and paying all the event fees and permits and whatnot for that art show event. now for the last 10 years, and I hope they'll continue on. And it looks like you're also going to do the Surfing Santas, which I think is a great gesture. With respect to regard to the Friday Fest started in, I think, 2012, 2013 officially. Craig Harriman started it, and it was then run by a couple different groups. I believe there was a business group that ran it up until 2016. It was also, I don't believe they had to pay any permits. When Main Street took it over in 2017, I believe, is that correct, Kenny? 2017, we had a contract with the city that the city would pay we didn't have to pay a permit for any of the Friday Fests, and the city took care of all the fees of overtime for the police officers and whatnot, and that's how that went. There was also initially a guarantee when we took it over that the city would reimburse up to $25,000 if they went into debt on doing the Friday Fest. That never transpired. I'm just giving you a history on it, and moved on to now, where we've got multiple events now in addition to the Friday Fest. Main Street has the Winterfest, the Kite Festival, and now the Surfing Santas. So that's kind of a history of how those events, and we're talking 12 Friday, well, not quite 12 Friday Fests, but if you include the Winterfest and the Kite Show, it's probably 12 events a year. Plus the art show, it's really a 13, plus a couple of the other things that you have on your list there. So it's not just 10 events on that list, it's multiple events. And 3 minutes. Hope that gives you some insight into how those events became sponsored by the city, and that it does promote people to come downtown to see the businesses. And that's what it's all been about. We basically with Main Street sponsoring it. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Nice necklace, by the way. All right, item 2.
Okay, unfinished business. Item 2, presentation and discussion on the methodology of the stormwater rate study and collection methods. Representatives Walker Dawson, Stormwater Utility Manager, Henry Thomas, Vice President, Raptelis Financial Consultants, Inc. Recommendation discuss.
Good. Good evening, Commissioners. I just wanted to introduce Henry Thomas. He is with the consulting firm that is handling our rate study. He conducted the rate study back in 2015. Did you do another one before that? Okay. So he's got a wealth of knowledge, and is going to talk to you about the rate study as well as some of the billing options that the city is considering at this point for collecting stormwater fees.
Thank you, Walker. Good evening. Henry Thomas, Vice President, Raptelis Financial Consultants. So as Walker indicated, back in 2015, we completed a stormwater study for the city of Cocoa Beach, and a series of rates were implemented through 2020. We haven't had any rate adjustments since that time. When we were engaged to look at your rates, obviously one of the key goals and most important things that we want to determine is the level of revenues you need relative to the costs of operating and maintaining the system. So as you know, stormwater systems are very maintenance oriented. If the facilities don't work properly, you don't get much flood prevention, you don't get the water quality you're looking for. So there's a lot of inspection and maintenance that goes into the operation of a stormwater system. In addition, you've got capital improvements that need to be done, both improvements to correct deficiencies, but also to maintain the assets that are in the system today so that you extend their life and they continue to function properly. So obviously since 2020, one of the things we're going to be facing going into this is we've had a number of years of inflation, including a few years of fairly high operating inflation, and capital projects are have gone up significantly. So when we address the rates this time, we're going to look at those funding needs. We'll be back after the first of the year with a workshop to go over this in detail. But primarily, again, stormwater rates, for those of you that are aware, are based upon a flat monthly bill for all residential customers within the city, and then a bill for commercial customers based upon an equivalent residential unit basis. So what that is really talking about, and it's a lot of jargon, but it's really coming up with what is the defining characteristic for billing stormwater services, which is impervious area. 80% of Florida's stormwater utilities use impervious area as the factor to bill. So in the case of the city, we have a factor for single-family residential, which is defined at 2,900 square feet. And for commercial then, each commercial property is actually measured. Each residential property pays one equivalent residential unit. The commercial properties are then multiples of 2,900 square feet. So if it's a 29,000 square feet of impervious area on the property, they pay 10 ERUs. And the rate is billed uniformly based on a price per ERU. So when we look at the rates this time, it's been a while. We didn't do this in 2015. So one aspect, the technical aspect of the study, is we are reviewing that ERU definition. Is 2,900 square feet the correct number? And that's done through a process of statistical sampling for the residential single-family class. So that's another thing we're going to look at. And then finally, and fairly quickly in the process, we're going to, in this workshop, roughly March timeframe, we're going to come back and talk to you about how you want to go into the future with respect to billing stormwater fees. So we've got to set the rate to recover our revenue requirements and fund the projects the city desires to fund and needs to fund. But then when we actually bill it, there's two methods that are in use in the state of Florida. One is a utility bill process, which is what the city does today, where the stormwater bill is added to the regular utility bills. The other alternative, which the staff is going to ask you to consider, is to bill it as a non-ad valorem assessment on the annual tax bill. And there's benefits to doing that. There's obviously benefits to doing it the utility bill way. We want to have that discussion and keep that alternative open. As a result, before the end of the year, they're going to ask you to pass a resolution that is a intent to do a non-ad valorem assessment. Now, the resolution is non-binding, so it really just retains the option. And when we do this non-ad valorem assessment method, we bill every October with the tax bill. So there's a number of dates between March and October 1 that we have to meet, including public notification of hearings that you would have to do. So again, if you want to go that route, you need to decide before the beginning of the year that you want that option. If we get into this process and you decide you do not want to do a tax assessment, a non-ad valorem assessment, you're not bound to do that. But if we do the resolution now, and really what it is about is putting the tax appraiser on notice that you're looking at this method. And by September 15th, we'll have to provide the tax assessor with a complete roll. If we choose to bill based on the tax bill, we'll give each property a charge and provide a roll that will be used to begin billing with the October 1 tax.
For next year, correct, Henry? Everything has to happen next year because of the 4-week advertising and the intent. So everything would be next year.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just want
Yes,
to
ma'am.
clarify.
So, yeah, we're talking about October 2024.
Thank you, sir.
Implementation.
Go ahead. Here's my issue with that. ad valorem. That's based on the property value.
Now, this is non-ad valorem.
I know, but it gets, whether it goes up or down is based on the value of the property.
No, not right.
Now, we'll set a fee just like you have now, and it'll be added to the tax bill as a fee. Let's
flat
say we
fee.
come up with a fee
It's
of,
flat.
yeah.
Okay.
So
All
it
right,
doesn't,
that
the value of the
settles
property.
that
doesn't
argument,
affect.
okay. Because, you know, if I'm like on Riverview and I'm on the canal side and my neighbor toward that end is landlocked in his backyard, we're both creating the same amount of stormwater, but their property's worth $250,000 less. So that's what I was just gonna say.
Is you collect most of the monies up front, so it's gonna, because a lot of your budget's.
Model going forward, like, do we have good actuals we can,
Yes, we've got good historical information on the
Yeah.
fund. You maintain it, if you will, like an enterprise fund.
yeah,
So
Okay.
we know the costs, and going forward, you've done quite a bit of work, and Dawson, you may want to speak to this, but, you know, you've done master planning and various work that we've identified capital need. Now, how much of it we can complete in a given period of time is going to be tempered by, you know, how high we want the rates to be, because there's a big amount of capital that we're seeing.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
My other question is, okay, so I've got 0.29 acre yard, lot, okay? I've only got a 1,700 square foot house. I don't mind paying the fee for 2,900 square feet because I got a double wide driveway, okay? But there's other people that have a 0.29 acre lot that have a circle drive and a double driveway and a 5,000 square foot house and a pool and decking and everything else. And they got very little, they pride themselves on having as least amount of lawn to mow as possible. They can do it with a weed whacker. That's how few grass they got. So I'm paying the same fee as them, or is it based on the size of the lot? Is it based on the square footage? Are you gonna go out and measure for green space, you know?
So let me say that there's methods that do take into account the total size of the lot as well as the impervious area on the lot. But traditionally, historically, residential's paid it's been a one-size-fits-all fee. One fee for each single-family home. Now, you point out that there's a large variance in the amount of impervious area between one single-family property and another. But when the fees were in the $6 a month range, like they used to be, it didn't seem to be that critical to administer it in a more costly way to be fair, because honestly, the more fairness you try to bring into it, the more complex it becomes. It's a little, you know, it's not something you can't overcome. So what's happening, and this is a trend, it's not fully established yet, but what's happening among communities is as these rates are going up, they're looking at, instead of one size fits all for residential class, perhaps small, medium, and large properties, okay? So that we take into account some of those variances that you talked about that lend to fairness. We've got a few communities in the state of Florida, and I'm working with two of them, City of Orlando and Key Biscayne. They measure every property, the impervious area on every property. So that's quite an undertaking, and it's quite difficult to manage it. But there is some, again, that gives you the most precise rate because it takes into account all those impervious surfaces on your neighbor's property. Even though he has a small home, he's got lots of concrete, he's gonna pay a higher rate as a result of that. The tiering, the small, medium, and large helps. It is a more fair way than one size fits all. And part of our scope is when we do our sample and come up with what the ERU factor is, we're gonna look at what we might be able to do in terms of small, medium, and large. And the other good thing about that, in my mind, is it will mitigate the impact of increases for the smaller homeowners. And like most smaller homeowners, and I know the community fairly well here, you've got people that have been in their homes for many, many years. They don't have more impervious area. So by, let's say our result of our study says the factor should be 3,200 square feet is one ERU. That really would shift the burden to residential. But if I've been in my home for 30 years and I've got, 1,800 square feet, I didn't do anything to deserve this. So by having the tiered rate, it gives us an ability to mitigate some of those consequences.
Well, I think we should do something like that, because even in condominiums, okay, if you've got the first floor, dinkiest one bedroom, or maybe 2 bedroom, and then people are on the 13th floor with 3 or 4 bedroom with lots more square footage, they all pay the same condo fee.
Right, now, for condominiums, what the best practice is typically is because it's the impervious footprint that.
No, I'm not talking about stormwater.
Okay.
I'm talking about, I'm just showing you a disparity. It's the poor guy buys into a 1 bedroom, he's paying the same, on the first floor, he's paying the same condo fee as the guy on the 13th floor corner unit with double ocean view.
Right, so again, it will lend more fairness to it to look at a tiered rate, and clearly,
Well, I think we owe it to our constituency to
look
come
at
up
those
with some kind of tiered rate.
Well, I'll definitely, I know we got a workshop coming up, so we don't have to go through the whole thing, but I want to make sure we don't get ourselves into being so fair that we charge everybody more. Where you said if it's flat $6 and we put too much complexity into it, and now it's fair, and the lowest is $8, $10, and $12, we were so fair that everybody gets to pay more, and we're not actually helping the smallest footprint. I just want to make sure we don't get ourselves into that
So that's a
situation.
good point, but what I would tell you is that there's really 2 issues here. The rates need to come up.
Yeah.
So you're exactly right. And by by going from a single rate to a multi-tiered rate, the rates for those biggest tiers is gonna go up the most.
And I think that's what we'll need to be able to
The
see.
rates for the smaller tiers may still go up, but not as much as they would have had we done. So we can keep the option of one size fits all.
Yeah.
How you're doing it now.
And just be able to
look at
compare.
them side by side.
Right.
And so you can make good decisions there.
Yeah, and the main,
It may cost more to implement it, the tiered system, in the short term, but in the long term, it's gonna save the people that qualify for the lower tiers.
potentially, but if the implementation, like at Biscay Bay, is I've got somebody going out and measuring every property every year, that's not gonna get cheaper.
Well, we don't have to, that's not a tiered system, that's
I mean, just go off of the,
So-
that's called a Nat's
What you
axis.
said in terms of being able to see the comparison, I think would be
We're adding an
important.
extra variable
Now, I
besides
will
just the
say
one size
this.
fits all.
I
3 size fits
believe
all.
that in the coming near future,
Yeah.
the technology to measure these factors is going to get
I
better
agree.
and better.
With overhead imaging,
You're going
yep.
to be, you'll see it
A
eventually.
level of
be
fidelity
measured.
with the 3.
But, because it's not, they don't go out to the property and physically measure it all. They use aerial photography
Sure.
and public sources to do this. Eventually, you're going to be able to measure every property. So to me, the tier is a step in that direction.
And I also appreciate that this is about public safety, preventing flooding,
That's right.
and that's the main goal.
And I will say this about Cocoa Beach, is I don't think, basically, I grew up in the area, so I know the community fairly well, and you don't have a lot of extreme variation. You're not, like we just worked with Plant City, and they've got a big rural component of
Right.
their city. So the property characteristics varied a lot. Here in Cocoa Beach, we're gonna have a lot of homes that are very similar. And maybe one size fits all is the right answer, but we'll be able to tell you more about that as we study the data.
Yeah, and I appreciate what you said. If you shift the equivalent resident up, all of a sudden you actually shift money onto the resident. So
That's
watching
right.
that one makes sense
And it
too.
actually reduces the commercial
Right.
burden. But I will tell you, because those are already measured, so it's just the factor that matters. But I will say this, of all of the studies we've done recently, we're being asked to look at these factors because they haven't been reconsidered in a long time. And for the most part, they are going up because housing over time has gotten bigger. Now, the trend's kind of stopped now and maybe even going the other way somewhat. But there for a while, new housing was bigger than the houses that my parents built in the 60s here in the Space Coast. So again, it wouldn't surprise me to see that number go up. That 2,900 as the basis.
Wouldn't it be easier just to go off of square footage of the home, like you said, 2,900 or whatever, and then anything above that would be a different rate? Just leave the other people alone?
Well, okay, so when we're talking 2,900 square feet, that's impervious area. So that's probably, keep in mind that what we're talking about here is the footprint of the house. So if it's two-story house, it's the area under roof divided by 2.
Right.
And then it's driveways, sidewalks, decks, patios, anything like that. So that's what makes up the 2,900.
So are you considering, let's say, pavers impervious, or are you considering pools? I mean,
Well, again, we're not trying to measure every single household.
right,
So we're doing this sampling. So, theoretically, some pavers are pervious. Some are not. I know the city, the last time we did the rates, they did some parks and they put down pervious pavers.
I mean, that's kind of what I'm getting at, is if you're gonna nitpick it, I mean, then you can go off of, well, this guy's got 50 trees in his yard and this guy just has grass and
You
this,
can't make it
I mean,
perfect. You can't make it.
so,
Another aspect that was mentioned is some communities, it's a small number, have a total area and an impervious area factor. And the fact is that, and this is not intuitive, but a lot of people think because their lot's bigger, that it absorbs more rainfall, okay? And therefore, they shouldn't pay as high a fee for a house the same size on a smaller lot. But the fact is, and that may be true on a lot of rain days, but when we have these events that cause the flooding and those kind of rain events, even the larger properties, the water runs off. And so what we see is, and this has been accepted in a few court cases, the engineers have told us that if impervious has a runoff factor of 1, a vacant lot or undeveloped property or vacant land on that lot that isn't impervious has a coefficient of about 0.15. So it does run off, just not as high a rate. So you could come up with all sorts of, you could have a rate that considers total area, impervious area. All these things can be deemed to be good rate making, but I think we want to keep it simple and fair. And you can get real carried away with making them too complex, I think.
I like adding this, a little bit of fidelity, because it trends in the ability, or towards the direction of having those variables to where you could control it conceivably. If you wanted to get a lower rate, you could get rid of impervious
I mean, I
area.
would say if you're gonna do it, and I hate to make it more complicated, but also have a mechanism so that somebody could contest if they, I mean, if they felt like it was overstepping bounds.
But breaking it up from one size fits all starts down that road, and we can start considering those.
Yeah, and we could include in the ordinance the ability to ask for an appeal or whatever.
Yeah, but
Factors.
once it hits your tax bill, there ain't no appeal.
So in the workshop, it'd
You
be
do want to get it right the first time.
Yeah.
It'd be
That's the one thing.
Yeah,
You
very
roll the tax bill,
interesting
you
to
gotta get it
see
right the first time.
just the top kind of going in. What do we need to make sure that Cocoa Beach is safe from a flooding perspective? So we can do stormwater management and then see the comparisons down of saying, hey, flat rate for residential versus tiered rate, how does that look?
How does that look?
And then for each of those, how do they shift the balance between business and residential? If that were packaged together,
And
that'd be a neat
We've
view.
done tables similar to that, that'll
Okay.
show you kind of the big picture impacts.
And I think that'd give us some ability to compare.
Right, and then I'd like to see that extrapolated over a
Yeah.
10-year period to show how those lines might converge or diverge.
That'd be neat.
Because if the guy, the little tier 1 guy, his line always stays below the other 2 lines, that's a good thing.
Even as the rate goes up.
Right.
Right.
And see, that's the thing that I think, when you get into this, the the how we bill it and the
Otherwise, you're
tiering,
paying
those are all good
averages
things.
of tiering.
But the revenue requirements is gonna be the thing we have to
But
really
it gives you
focus
the
on
lever, you
most,
can be that
because
without
based on
knowing.
what I'm seeing,
Right
you've
now,
got a lot of
there's no
need out
motivation.
there. And I will just tell you that we are seeing rates in other communities are starting to get in the $20 to $40 range per month because of what they're trying to tackle. And, you know, one of them is Palm Coast, which is just up the coast here, and has the same flooding issues that Cocoa Beach may have. But keep in mind, the other thing that's driving this is not just what we need to mitigate flooding, but also water quality. Because this is now becoming a highly regulated issue, and with all the water bodies around you, they want to make sure you're testing the outflows and doing treatment type mechanisms, outfalls, so that we don't continue to damage the lagoon and such.
Do you by chance or anybody know what our current rate is for residential?
It's $8.96
Per
Okay.
MPU.
per
And,
month.
and what are you thinking if it was a flat rate? What are you thinking
But
about?
that is the current flat.
I know, but have you kind of figured out
Well, what a comparable flat rate would be.
what you think it should
We're
be?
not quite there yet. I don't want to go out on a limb. It's going to go up quite a bit.
Like 100% quite a bit, or?
Part of that's going to be with interaction and input from y'all.
Yeah,
Because again, if it's capital driven,
yeah.
there's one thing that we have some control over, it's the timing of how we do that
Yeah.
and how we fund it. So the quicker, the more urgent the need is, the bigger the impact. If we can spread it out over time more and do some good, you know, like last time you did an SRF loan, and that's really low cost money. And when you have large capital needs, that's a way to go, because you're paying for the asset over its life, and you've got new growth to help pay for it. So we're gonna look at all that, and I just don't wanna give you a number right now, it would be very premature. We're putting the budget and capital plan together, we haven't even had a chance to review it heavily internally or with staff yet.
We
So I
also-
don't wanna get ahead of ourselves.
Understood.
Are there grants and things like that, state or federal, that we could also be looking at? And
There
I'm
are.
sure you guys are already looking at it.
We actually just went for the appropriation for that, for was it
stormwater?
1.5 for the stormwater?
Yes, so yeah, 1.5 was what we were looking at for the appropriation request that we brought we sent it off to our lobbyists, and then we went up to Tallahassee last week. There's a variety of grants under this current administration here in the state of Florida. This is probably the most funding that I've ever seen available for water quality and resiliency type projects. This administration's got a couple more years. Who knows what's gonna happen next go around.
So you better get it now while it lasts.
Yeah. We only got so many resources on the personnel side. We can't do all of the projects at once. It's just not possible, but we're doing what we can and what we have budgeted, so.
Make the commission do some work.
So we had, about 1.5 appropriations, possibly, there's a good chance, it looked pretty good, I thought, but then, don't you have another, like, 1.5 or something come from somewhere else, or?
Multiple years.
So.
Yeah, for 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, for 3 years. So the specific project, which I'm going to talk about here in a minute, is the Cedar Woodland Brevard project. Right
Okay.
now, that project's got an estimated cost of about $8.5 million. We submitted a $4.25 million grant request to the state for their resiliency grant. And then we asked for the 1.5 from the legislature as an appropriation. And we told them that if we get this 1.5, we'd come back the next 2 years and ask for additional money, because the project's going to take a couple of years.
Okay. Any more questions or public comment on this, or are you still presenting?
No, if you have questions, I'll
Okay.
do my best to answer them, but I'm done.
You guys got any more
Oh,
questions?
thank you.
All right, any public comment or questions about any of that? All right, well, I appreciate you, thank you.
We'll be back soon.
Item 3, city attorney.
Okay, this is discuss the status of flooding issues at Cedar, Woodland, and Brevard Avenues, review the flood assessment report, and the possibility of incorporating the project proposed by the property owner at 102 Woodland into the flood assessment report. Representative Walker Dawson, Stormwater Utility Manager, recommendation discuss.
Oh, it was the man behind the screen.
Well, you already gave all the words on your first slide.
All right, I just wanted to take a couple minutes to provide the commission with an update on the Cedar Woodland Brevard project and also come back with an update on the 102 Woodland property. Commission requested that we provide an update back on October 5th. I'll try and keep this pretty quick so I can answer as many questions as possible. I know it's getting a little late. So briefly, I'm just going to give you a project background on the Cedar Woodland Brevard. I'm going to talk a little bit about the results of the flood assessment study. We just got the final report literally the end of last week. And then again, give you an update on 102 Woodland. So the Cedar Woodland Brevard project was identified as one of the flood mitigation projects in the 2021 Stormwater Master Plan update. It's the area itself where the work will take place is about 40 acres. There's approximately 150 properties in this area. It's a mix of residential and commercial. And it's an old neighborhood. It was platted between the mid and late 1950s. And as anyone who knows this area has seen, it floods regularly. There's nuisance flooding multiple times a year. And then there's occasions where certain properties have severe flooding, like the 102 Woodland property. So we hired a consultant to conduct the flood study and also provide a handful of alternatives to look at. The study was pretty standard. There was field data collection, mapping of the existing infrastructure, an alternatives analysis, and then flood modeling. So the flood modeling looked at what the flooding would look like during certain return interval storm events, and I'll get into those in a little bit, under existing conditions. Also, what the flooding would look like under the different conditions with the different alternatives. And then there was also a future water level assessment, assuming that the river came up a foot and a half in the next 50 years, what it's going to look like. So just the problem. So this, whoops, went the wrong way. So this is just this is a look at the infrastructure in the ground here. So in a nutshell, this is a low-lying area with limited capacity for conveyance of stormwater. In some of these main transmission lines here, these are big culverts that basically carry the water from east to west. Same here. This is just to get your bearings. This is North Atlantic. This is Orlando, Brevard, Woodland, Cedar, and then Oak Avenue. This is North Shore Drive right here, and then Indian Creek down here. So a lot of these main transmission lines, they have sediment deposition. As far as I know, the entirety of the lines, they've been in the ground since the late 50s, early 60s. They've never been cleaned. So there's definitely sediment that is clogging up some of these pipes. Another big one is a hydraulic gradient, but also there's virtually no stormwater storage capacity anywhere in this area. Going back to this hydraulic gradient, these blue lines all represent the culverts that all connect to, up here, this all connects to a main transmission line that's somewhere between 52 and 60 inches. This runs from North Atlantic Avenue, which is up by the beach, all the way down past Orlando, past Brevard, Woodland, Cedar, and it dumps out right here at North Shore Drive. All the way up to 4th Street North. This stuff all comes down. Anytime we have a major storm, it's got to come down these lines, hit this 52-inch line, and then dump right out here. This is a big part of the problem when we have those torrential downpours that we see during an afternoon thunderstorm where we get a couple inches of rain in 2 hours or so. This line essentially becomes charged, and the hydraulic pressure in this line prevents the water that is trying to run off from Brevard, Woodland, and Cedar into the inlets from coming in, and oftentimes it can actually come out of the inlets because there's so much hydraulic pressure in there. And the same likely goes for what you see down here on 1st Street North. I think a big part of the problem that we see in this particular area when we have major rainfall is this line not allowing stormwater to enter, and that stormwater floods down to the south from there. So part of the assessment was they modeled 4 different return interval events, a 100-year, a 25-year, a 10-year, and a 2-year. Basically what these are, for example, the 100-year event is about 13 inches in a 24-hour period. 25 years is about 10 inches, so on and so forth. It goes down. In this particular figure that you're seeing here, this is the model results for a 100-year return interval event. You can see this, the entire neighborhood is essentially inundated. Here's the 102 Woodland property, 1st Street North, 2nd Street North, Brevard. And I think most of us have, if you've driven down here during a major rainfall, you've actually seen these roads inundated like we had on October 1st, where we had 4 inches of rain, basically before noon on that morning. So I'll jump into the alternatives. So this is the preferred alternative. Alternative 1 is the $8.5 million project. Don't get too bogged down in all the call-out boxes that you see. Basically, what we're doing in this alternative is upsizing the existing culverts. Anywhere you see a magenta line, that is pulling out the existing line and upsizing it. There will also be adding 2 culverts and 2 outfalls. Anywhere you see a solid green line, that's adding a new culvert. There would be a new outfall added here on North Shore Drive. Here's a new culvert here along Cedar, and a new outfall right here, kind of where Cedar almost meets the river, if you will. Additionally, anywhere you see the green dashed line, that's cleaning the existing culverts. Like I said, these main transmission lines have never been cleaned, at least not to my knowledge. Alternative 1A, it's kind of a spinoff on the original alternative. It is just adding the new culverts and adding the outfalls that you see here. Those are part of alternative 1. And there are replacing some of the existing culverts, but these are the ones that cross under 2nd Street North and 1 or 2 that crosses under 1st Street North. Alternative 2 is basically just upsizing some of those same culverts that we were going to upsize in alternative 1. Anywhere you see magenta, it's enlarging the size of the pipes that are in the ground here. You see them here, you see them right here, and then up around here. That's the same slide. Alternative 3, all this is really just cleaning and maintenance, and then installing some backflow preventers down here on the transmission lines, basically at the outfall that is right here at Cedar, and then also a backflow preventer up here where Cedar meets 1st Street North. Let me jump back up. I kind of glossed over I didn't really talk about the cost. Alternative 1 is approximately $8.5 million. The reality is those costs are likely going to go up the way construction costs are going. Alternative 1A is about $6.7 million. Alternative 2 is $4.25 million. And alternative 3 is approximately $1 million.
Hey, Walker.
Yes.
So that's brand new culvert. That's not like the slip lining stuff they're doing.
That's right.
Okay, so they're
Like
tearing it
that
up,
big
putting a brand new pipe in.
Yeah, they're increasing the culvert size is the intent there.
Is there any option, I'm not in this field, but to do like a boost pump to push it faster, or does it have to be bigger pipe?
There is that option. You need to have, I don't want to misspeak on this, but I think you need to have a storage area for the water, because it's really a balancing act, how much water is coming in versus how fast your pump is pumping out. So I think in order to effectively utilize a pump, you have to have an area to store the water.
Discharge.
So you can pump from that particular.
And you're also increasing that hydraulic pressure.
Pressure on them lines.
If you're gonna be pumping from one certain area into the same thing, and now you're holding back all the water coming down from, North A1A, and, trying to pump it out this way, and it's all gonna end up coming.
Because it's just a timing issue, right? It's just collecting so fast it can't flow.
That's
gravity-wise.
yes, that's what I've seen. Like when we had that rainfall on October 1, this whole run of Brevard Avenue right here was under between basically Minuteman all the way up to 2nd Street North.
Yeah,
There was
it's bad
6 to
all
10
the
inches of water, but within an hour it was gone. It was all gone. So it's really, the
Yeah, but
ability to transfer the water quick enough is
The
the problem.
damage to some properties that
Yes,
wasn't
absolutely.
gone
Well, that's why
in an hour.
that's why I was bringing up the pump wise, it's something you can deploy quickly and get.
What was that $1 million option? What was that?
So that is cleaning the existing lines and then installing backflow preventers. The cleaning of these lines is pretty expensive because of the size of these lines. The same company who's doing the slip lining for water reclamation in situ form, they can come in and clean these lines. These 52 to 60 inch lines, it's pretty costly. Another challenge with it is they have to install plugs at the end of these culverts, and then they have to dewater the entire system before they can clean it. So when you get up to these size pipes, it gets pretty expensive. They're very capable of doing it, it just costs a lot of money.
But plus, if it rains, they gotta stop and let the water go in so it can flow out.
Right,
And,
right,
you know,
exactly.
Then they
yeah.
gotta remobilize to.
Well, and it's definitely a wintertime type project when, you know, we're looking at extended dry periods of time. This is not something you want to try and do in June or July.
And then the other $6 million option was doing what?
So this $6 million option is only installing, so the 8.5 is upsizing all of these pipes here.
Yeah.
This 6.7 is only installing these new green pipes that include 2 additional outfalls. So, right.
So
here.
Walker, our lines, are they like the sewer lines? Are they crumbling? Are they breaking? I know we're already having to slip line a few other stormwater line areas, culvert
Well, they're
areas.
just filling up with, like, the canals with sludge and sand. and-
I understand that part. I just
Well,
didn't know. I know
we
we've
don't-
had to
we
replace some
actually-
others.
We don't know, because we have never actually inspected these entire runs of lines. We've got some manholes, our guys have popped down in there. They've worked with Water Rec to clean segments of it, you know, like 100 feet of it. We've never fully cleaned or inspected these lines, and they've been in the ground for a long time. So-
Because up in Tula, or St. Lucie, we have to replace the stormwater through using slip line because it's deteriorated. So again, that was installed same timing as everything else. So do I have that issue everywhere else would be my concern.
Right.
I've got a, let me go up there real quick. Is it a viable option or an idea to try, because in my opinion, this bottom section is probably the worst section by DeLeo's place.
Right.
Would it be a good idea to start on this first and see if it works with that before we go through the whole big project and to see if that actually makes a difference?
That is a possibility, and I can ask the consultant their opinion on that, because the guys who ran the model could potentially segment it and say, hey, this is what it looks like, and look at it, pare it down to a smaller area.
Because really, I mean, this is,
But the
we're not for sure that this is gonna actually do what we need it to do anyways. So if we did that one section and seen if that made a difference, then we go for the full scale.
But your modeling is pretty tight,
Well,
I would think.
you guys, I was there, and the water was coming from, like you said, up north and coming down the street, and from A1A and coming down the streets, and then it was coming down Woodland, and there was waves on the road, and Penny's actually got a video showing the water
Yeah.
flowing over the curbs.
That's this one.
But do you see that?
But I mean, if you,
Yeah, I
if you
got
watch the video, you can see.
That southern section isn't connected to the rest of it, and that's where the bulk of the issue is. What I'm saying is,
No, but he's saying because all the north A1A and Orlando water comes that way, it plugs up the water that's supposed to be going that way from the middle of that red box that's supposed to be going to the north. It doesn't go to the north, it ends up just coming back down to the south and flooding.
I do think that is definitely a contributor on some level. When this pipe is pressurized, so to speak, none of the water that should be flowing into these inlets that are along, you know, Cedar, Woodland, and Brevard here, it just fills the road up and it slowly migrates south. But yes, I do agree. This is one of the lowest areas. When you get down from Oak Ave, Cedar, and Woodland right here, this particular area down in this corner along First Street North is definitely some of the lowest areas.
I'm just saying, if we're gonna spend that much money, we wanna make sure that what we're doing is working before we do on a full scale
Well, I think you kind of have to look at the project as a whole to make it work. But you were going to do it in phases anyway, right? Because that's how we were.
Well, phasing in the sense that this type of construction is extraordinarily invasive, and it's going to take a lot of coordination amongst the residents and, you know, our contractor. It's going to take a while to do this project. I mean, we can phase things like, a thing that we could do tomorrow if we wanted to, is we can clean the lines. That's the first thing we can do. But yes, we can phase certain sections of it. Obviously, we don't want to come in here like gangbusters and destroy this whole neighborhood all at one time. But yes, phasing it, we will. Going back to the appropriation request, I don't think we're going to be able to spend that 8.5 million in, you know, within a 6-month period of time. I think it's going to take a year or two to really get through this project.
So in that way, you can phase it and start with that, right? But can you really isolate the project in the areas, or?
We would have to look at it more closely. We're not that far along yet. We're in the process of, next step will be permit applications. Basically, from where I sit, what I would do is get a permit to do, you know, the Cadillac of these projects. We don't have to build it all. We don't even have to bid it that way. We just get the permit in place. We can do whatever sections we decide we want to do when we want to do them.
I mean, we have several homeowners in the area and on some of these streets who have installed pumps to pump out their yards and their areas. So there are, again, I don't know how many properties, it's not limited to one that has, I mean, some
But
serious.
then that water just goes down the
Right
street
back in.
and goes back
Understand.
into somebody else's property.
Right, but she's keeping
So-
it out of her house, inside of our house.
What you're saying makes perfect project management sense. You go get your permitting for the whole thing, whether you got the money or not. And then when you put out your RFP, you put it in your best guess how much money we're gonna get in, phase, you know, where you do it in, like 3-phase bid. Do this, and then, okay, we had the money to do that, so we get started, like you're saying, Keith. And then the next phase, which you can't do them all at the same time anyway, you have a bid for that, and you can exercise those as options. And then you can have the whole 8.5 million bidded out and on contract with the first phase funded, and then the other 2 is options.
Right, yeah,
And
exactly.
then if we don't get this other 1.5 million, or come up with the money to finish it, or if everything all of a sudden starts flowing, then you just don't exercise option 3.
Do you have that picture on the slide?
I do not have that picture on the slide.
Could you show me where the drain is in this picture?
Penny, do you got your videos?
I think it's right on the edge of the sidewalk, is it not?
It's right
this
there.
guy right there.
It's right there. It's right under, it's right there.
There's a drain that's underwater
Got
here.
your video?
There's also a drain when you go back, you're not bringing these, in that north, southwest corner, there's another drain right there.
Those are great drains, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, really great.
Great.
Walker, in terms of the options that they've showed us,
No, you're good. You're good. Here. I'm sorry?
no, you're fine. In terms of the options that they've showed us, are all of them going to get us the relief that the folks that are dealing with the flooding? Or are there a handful of them that you believe are truly relevant? And of those, which one of them get us the most bang for the buck?
So the most bang for the flood reduction would be the 8.5 million.
That's gonna get us the biggest progress,
That will give us
gallons per dollar.
The best bang for our buck.
Holistically, the whole community.
Yes, for community-wide, that will provide the best results based on the model analysis. So,
Are the drains in this picture underwater at this
yes,
point?
oh, yes,
Okay.
they're way underwater there.
I guess you're asking like capacity per dollar, I think.
Right,
How much
so
added
if
capacity
we've got
versus
to,
the dollar spent.
if we've got to move, 10,000 gallons per minute kind of thing, and right now we're only moving 5, do all of the projects get me to 10? Do only a handful get me to 10? And does some of them get me to 8.5 where I have to spend double to close the
Is
rest?
it linear or is it?
Right.
shoots
What's the
up?
relationship?
Go back to the folder down here.
We may be too early to know.
I don't know that we have the data from the consultant to tell us all of that yet. Again, I think we have some of it, and I think we know, based on what Walker and and engineering, you know, what they've looked at and what's happened over time, we have a little bit of a feel for that, but we don't have all that. Again, he just received the report Friday.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they can give us kind of per option, gallon per minute, or I don't know
Yes.
what the right metric is.
No, it'd be gallon per
And
minute,
then we start looking at
So
that
I
per
can-
dollar.
yeah, or
And
per tonnage.
ideally, we get everything we can get, but at least we know,
Right.
hey, any of these will get us there.
The drain's right there on the top.
It's 100-year.
Or the yellow, yeah, it's the drain.
That's where the drain is, and that's the drain.
There's a drain right there. There's also a drain around the corner, kind of back over here. If you, under
I still-
the southwest corner of their property, they have another drain. That actually, the owner installed that drain, I think it was 2016? 2015, 16? But yeah, this is one of the problems is, you know, their property is about 1.5 feet lower than the crown of the road. And when we get those heavy inundating rains, it sheet flows over their driveway, you know, and unfortunately, it's the nature of the topography in this particular area. When these places were originally built in the 50s, we also didn't have the kind of development that we see here, where this is just, they've just been adding, everything's been adding on. Back when this was originally platted, probably wasn't an issue. All of this has, you know, been built out, it's impervious, and now you've probably just been adding pipes and adding pipes and adding pipes. Now we've got this, you know, a low-lying area that would have been fine in the 50s. Everything's impervious. This system cannot handle all of the water that's coming in here during major storm, well, I should say a typical afternoon thunderstorm that we see here in the summer. So,
The tank that's on the north side is like a siphon or something up to the street, or on that property, there's a giant like holding tank.
oh yeah, those are your rain barrels, right?
Yeah, that's where he pumps his.
To keep it out of that well.
He tries to keep it out of his building by pumping it into those, but when they get full, there's nowhere to let it go. No place to let it go.
Water tanks.
Yeah, no, I know it's a problem. I'm just trying to get.
Yeah.
So these pipes, Walker, you said 52 inches is the smallest ones?
No, not the smallest. So the biggest one, the largest transmission line that we have is 60 inches, and there's a couple sections of it where it's 52 inches along Second Street North. The one running down First Street North, I believe, is 36 inches. So, but the one running down Second Street, because it collects so much, it's the largest of the bunch, so.
We'd need to see in there and see if there's any obstructions. I mean, that's number one.
I don't disagree with you at all. I think inspecting and cleaning these lines, because you don't know what the problem is.
I mean, it's possible that could even fix the issue.
Yeah, and that was, part of the study was just cleaning lines. Well, their flood modeling results did not show any difference. Part of the reason why their model results didn't show a difference was they didn't want to estimate what the constriction in the pipes were and be wrong.
Yeah.
They said, you know, so it's essentially looking at the exact same size line.
Well, those pipes have been in the ground for 60 years and never been cleaned.
Yep.
So,
They gotta be full of stuff.
that you might get an extra foot out of it.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
sediment.
there's a lot of water flowing through those pipes, so that, I'm sure that some of it's got washed out. But, during your whole overall presentation, are you gonna bring up the engineered solution that the owner at 102 already had?
Yeah.
On there, we can go through that.
Yeah, so I'm gonna get to that. So
Okay.
this is just the flooding model results. This is alternative one. This is the 8.5 million with a 100-year storm, so 13 inches in 24 hours. There still is a footprint. The one thing that we have to consider in this is how deep is that water? You know, if it's showing flooding, is it 2 inches? Is it 2 feet? That's a big deal, because if it's 2 inches, it's nuisance flooding. If it's 2 feet, that's catastrophic flooding. So I'll jump through these real quick. These are each of the alternatives and the flood modeling results, so you'll see 4 of them. I know in your packet, there is, I think I've got 16 different sheets. I didn't want to bore everyone with these. So this is essentially showing the existing conditions compared to the results with each one of the alternatives for the 100-year return interval event. So this is the $8.5 million alternative. This is the $6.7 million alternative. Not a tremendous change, but there is some change. There's some difference between the two. And then this is the 4.25. Basically what the model results show is upsizing the pipes that run along Woodland, Brevard, and Cedar. They don't really provide much benefit. That would tell me that the problem is the constrictions on the main transmission line. And then this is the cleaning of the lines, which didn't really show much change at all based on the model results.
But you were saying that some of that may be error in the model itself.
Yes. So I will say this, models are tools. They are not the gospel. I think people get really hung up on cool graphics and go, oh, look, this is what's going to happen if we do this. These are just a tool in the toolbox. They're not necessarily gospel. And oftentimes, if models are not done properly, I think this was done properly, it's garbage in, garbage out. You can get erroneous results from a model. So that's just been my professional experience. So just wanted to give you an update. This was requested during the October 5th, 2023 meeting on the 102 Woodland property. As you can see, we've got tons of historical photos of this property that has flooded. Here's a photo from sometime in 2004. This is 2013, and this was during Ian back in 2022. So it's a 1-acre commercial property. It's a low-lying property. It's very low. It's about 1.5 feet below the crown of the road. And again, just like what was stated in the stormwater flood assessment for this area, it has limited stormwater conveyance and storage capacity. It's predominantly an impervious site. So once water ends up there, it has a really hard time leaving the site, even though they've installed the drain at the southwest corner of the property, especially when we have rainfall like what we saw on October 1st. City staff, I can't really speak historically. I found some old correspondence, but it's my understanding city staff has communicated with you guys pretty regularly over the years since they've purchased the property. City has constructed a number of improvements adjacent to the property. Rain gardens and trench grates were installed in 2019. And then there was an exfiltration chamber, which they were building. This is on the southeast corner of the property, all the way back to the southwest corner of the property back in 2012. The owner has also taken steps to try to improve the situation. They permitted and constructed an inlet and culvert. This is actually the inlet that is at the southwest corner of their property. It's actually right there in this picture, the picture there. This is First Street North, basically looking west down First Street North. They've also installed the large capacity rain barrels as well. So in September 2022, they applied for a building permit. Basically, they wanted to install a retaining wall along the eastern portion of Woodland. You want to close off one of the parking, or one of the two of the driveway aprons. And basically, it would impound water along along the western side of Woodland, and it would divert the water around down to First Street North and to the inlets on that side of the property. The engineering review of the permit was completed in June of 2023. We didn't sit on it for almost 9 months. We were talking to the owners for a while, and then we finally got what we needed, and we were able to complete the review. And the permit was actually issued in August of 2023. On July 18th of 2023, after the permit was reviewed and engineering and stormwater approved it, we met with the owners, and they had requested a partnership with the city to pursue and secure grants to fund their portion of the project. The owner's claims is that this project will mitigate flooding for neighboring properties, and this would also require a public-private partnership. From where I stand professionally in my position, I can't substantiate this claim, that this will mitigate flooding for the neighbors without an engineering report that evaluates what they have done, looks at a number of different, rainfall events, and substantiates that this is something that will benefit the neighboring properties. This is what the owner claims. There's not a report that substantiates that.
Doesn't mean it's not true.
That is true, but in my professional position, I can't come to you and say, yes, this is what's going to happen. Like I can't do that in my role, especially as a licensed professional engineer. So, we started looking into what the Florida statutes say about public-private partnership. And I picked out some of the key things that I read in the statute. And, basically qualifying projects, a facility or project that serves a public purpose. Most public-private partnerships include things like ferry, mass transit, vehicle parking facility, airport, seaport, rail facility, so on and so forth. But it also goes on to say, or any other public facility or infrastructure that is used or will be used by the public at large or in support of an accepted public purpose or activity. And then, the legislative findings and intent. And the legislature finds that there is a public need for construction or upgrade of facilities that are used predominantly for public purposes, and that is in the public's interest to provide for construction or upgrade of such facilities. And so another nuance to the public-private partnership is a component of when a private entity approaches a public entity and says, hey, we want to do this project. There's procurement requirements where if we say, hey, we want to do this, we have to go out and advertise and say, is there anyone else who wants to do this exact project? If not, and we're basically making it known that we intend to enter into an agreement with this private entity. So there's a procurement requirement based on Florida statute.
Is the owner amenable to doing that? Should that be required? If we get to that step, or ask Greg and Penny, would you be willing to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got the project ready to go. We just need some funding.
Okay, all right. Let Walker finish.
Okay, so this essentially is it. I'm done at this point. I was kind of looking. Becky, did I miss anything on the public-private partnership?
Okay, no, and I just learned about this tonight. So I didn't, although in my career, I've done a lot of public-private partnerships, and it's controlled by statute, but it's for a public use. So a facility that you spend money on and you invest public money into is for something that the public uses. It might be a playhouse, it might be a privately owned playhouse, but the public uses it. Or it might be an airport, or it might be, any number of things, but it's a public project. It's something where the public uses it. It's not just to help one particular.
Well, the problem is the public is using his property now as a retention pond. All those properties that are feeding in that area are using his property as a retention pond.
No, I hear you. And as I said, I learned about this tonight, and I had time enough to bring up the statute, but I will research it to see if there is something.
I would ask you to do so, please.
Absolutely, no question about it. And there might be something that, God only knows, there are a lot of things I don't know about this and every other
I think
legal
the
issue,
biggest
but I can
issue is-
research it.
If the city, any facet of this new improvement, 8.5 million, that's gonna do anything that's on his property, then we need to make it where the city's not liable if anybody gets hurt on his property or vice versa. And I think that's our main concern on the public-private partnership, besides getting some funding, is to city doesn't want to work on private property, and they don't want him working on the city property. So we need a public-private partnership so they can work together.
Oh, okay, if that's what we're talking about, there really is, that's why you
I
get
mean,
temporary construction
The Sorrel
easements.
people already gave him a grant to work this as a benefit to the Indian River Lagoon. It's just not enough money to do the project.
Okay.
So Sorrel, who's regulated by the state and everybody else, thinks it's a benefit to the public and to the lagoon.
And there's no problem with the city spending money in an overall project, but it's not a public.
It just may not qualify to the statute.
It wouldn't
but
be
it doesn't need
under
to.
this statute.
Okay.
But I mean, as far as the city doing work on private property to take care of flooding in a big area, that's not a problem. We just get a temporary construction easement from them to be able to do that.
Right,
And
that's what we
that's
need.
not a problem. But you don't have to go through this.
You involved,
Yes,
Jackie.
that's,
So please bring back us some bright ideas.
I will do that.
So we can keep this property from being the retention pond for the community.
No, I hear you.
I have some reservations about this. Because first of all, I would have to see a report or something or an analysis to show how this is going to benefit the rest of the public. I mean, I know what you're saying, but I'd have to see some kind of
Well, the public's
report.
benefiting right now because they don't have a bunch of water in their properties. It's
But
only
we're gonna
his.
put money towards that whole big project that's gonna take care of that. So I need to see some report that shows analysis that shows this benefits that whole area. And also, this sets a precedent for anybody else who wants to come and improve their property. I mean, where does this, I mean, we gotta be careful what we're setting a precedence for.
We're not talking
If-
about putting any money into it, we're just talking about
No,
securing grants for them, right, or helping.
No, some of this money.
Yeah, he's asking
on
for
the
money.
project would go into-
So we start giving away money to projects that go to private property, we're setting
We
a
have to be
precedent.
mindful of that, you're right.
So we need some more justification, and I'd say more analysis, how this benefits public property.
According to what Walker read, I don't see how it's possible, but I understand what you're saying. So,
You don't understand how it's possible that helps the whole
what he
area?
read, it doesn't look like it would qualify to be a
Well,
public.
that's what Becky
Yeah,
said.
that's-
Yeah,
It wouldn't,
you don't have
it
to
wouldn't
fall under
qualify
this.
under that particular statute.
Like,
That's a
Becky's
misuse of
lawyer
that
and
statute.
Walker's an engineer.
So, okay.
But I think there's a bigger problem than beyond just this one problem. Yeah, this is the case study, but it sounds like from Walker in the model, and there's a bigger problem, to your
Yeah.
point, is let's pull on that thread a little bit, and maybe there's your justification. It's not a specific property. There's clearly a flooding issue in that entire neighborhood.
We have several homes that have been reported to
Yeah.
us, again, so, and Walker's aware probably of the addresses better than I can. Again, the one lady I know is pumping, but several other addresses we've been out there to do.
So are we gonna have public-private partnerships for all these houses soon? And we gotta give them all money when we're already putting money towards a bigger project to help the whole problem as a whole? And that could help them all? That's what I'm saying.
So another fact being that those trenches that go into the rain gardens that were put in with the city, work with them on all that. In smaller rain events, that helps a lot. But it's these big ones that turn the property into a retention pond that really cause the damage to his property, because, I walked in there and there's 3 inches of water on the entire first floor above the floor.
That's pretty miserable.
Can we do something where we can temporarily help them till we get the project done, like put a pump in and help them with that? I don't know, is this something we
I
can
think that
do?
he would say anything is fine, even if
Something
he's
like
gotta,
that?
even if he's gotta have stacks of sandbags and then just, when you check the weather channel and then, if he's got a forklift and
Where can you pump it when those grates are underwater?
Can I comment at some point?
Of course, of course.
Okay, I'd like to make a couple comments. One thing that was on his slides was.
Come to the microphone.
Yeah, come up and.
Craig from Woodland Business Center, and thank you for listening. One of the points on his slides was we have no storage capacity. The solution we have will store 24,000 gallons of water. That 24,000 gallons of water will not be going down the storm drain, giving all the other residents in the area an opportunity to get their water into the overburdened storm system that we have because of sediment, whatever's in those pipes. We can't get the water out fast enough. And even if we do clean them, we're not guaranteed that 18-inch RCP or reinforced concrete pipe or whatever's in the ground going out to the big pipes is going to even handle all the water coming in there. We are offering, our solution offers storage capacity. It also offers clean water going back into the Indian River Lagoon because it has a time to sit and percolate back into the aquifer, and that's why the Sorrel gave us the money. In addition to the clean water, which the Sorrel is interested in, we have the storage capacity for 24,000 gallons, in addition to the 16,000 gallons that we're already harvesting off of our impervious areas. We're planning on in those swale areas around. As a matter of fact, we have the drawing. I don't know if we want to go into that level of detail, but it goes all the way around the property, not just on the east side. The wall will go all the way around the property, a huge trench grate where that water's coming in on that well, first of all, that southeast will get cut off. Where all that water was coming in, it typically comes in on the northeast corner. But since the road has been raised, now it comes in on the southeast corner. We're going to cut that off. The rain is going to now come into the northeast corner. It's going to drop into a huge trench grate, 2 foot by 2 foot by 20 feet long. It's going to be diverted to the left and not come into our property. It'll be stored all the way around, and it'll have an opportunity to naturally percolate back into the ground. We're not going to take that water and pump it back into the stormwater system. The water we harvest now, 16,000 gallons, is not pumped back into the stormwater system. It's pumped back onto the yard, and when it gets hot, we let it out. We do not, put it back into the system. We actually are trying to benefit. The ultimate goal is to use our system as a primary for ours, and the stormwater system would be secondary. We're trying to get it off of that system because it's not working for us. However, if we get more than 24,000 gallons, there's a little area where it can come up and over. He's calling it a weir. Matter of fact, we have a licensed engineer that's put all this together and done the analysis. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it here tonight. If he was here tonight, he could give you any kind of analysis or any kind of answer, any kind of questions that you guys would have.
Thank you.
Walker, is it possible to, with the projects we're talking about, to take some of what they've learned and potentially, if it is something that can mitigate their property and some of the other ones where we've seen a significant issue, potentially include that into the larger project as one of the first phase elements and potentially apply it to some of the other properties for initial relief?
There's a couple of concerns that I have. One, I know 24,000 gallons seems like a massive amount of water, but that is less than 1 inch of rainfall over the footprint of his property. I ran the calculation to look at that. So on October 1st, we had 4 inches of rain. That system would have been inundated. Would it help with bleeding off the water? To a certain extent, yes, but then it would hit, basically a certain capacity, and then, the flooding would be a problem. What the other concern is would that potentially create other problems elsewhere? So I cannot, in my professional capacity, say, yes, this is going to benefit the other areas. During these smaller rainfall events, absolutely, it will serve a good purpose. But when we get these crazy afternoon thunderstorms, I can't say that this is going to be a success and it's going to mitigate flooding for adjacent properties and stuff like that. Could this potentially be utilized on other properties? Absolutely. It's typically a case-by-case basis. There's so many nuances because water's always taking the path of least resistance. It's going to go to the lowest point. It's going to find the easiest route. So it's not a one-size-fits-all for stormwater stuff with, doing a retaining wall or impounding a certain amount of water depending on different types of property. Not sure if I actually just answered your question. I feel like I might have rambled a little bit.
No, I think you did. I think it's gonna depend on the other properties, it's gonna depend on this property. The one piece I wasn't sure, if we did find it, there were areas of applicability, could we include it in the larger project? As part of a first phase or something like that, from a funding perspective?
I mean, I'm kind of looking at my knee-jerk reaction is whatever the commission wants us to do. I mean, we can do whatever. Obviously, there's a component of us working with our consultant to ensure it's feasible. And obviously, it's got to be permittable. But
I think even taking some of the considerations or Sorrell's report or Sorrell's recommendations, I mean, those things have to be presented to the engineering services that we've hired, and this report that they put out. I mean, there has to be some kind of expectation that you can expect as a commission paying for whatever it might be, and some type of engineering report that tells us this is the direction to go in. And I think that's what we're missing at this point in time. So we don't have that. I know that you have that, but we don't have that. So I think,
wondering why I wasn't falling asleep at 9 o'clock.
that's one of the other missing components. And then understanding how, again, I agree, some type of construction easement or whatever that you want to call it, that's kind of neither here nor there, but it's the other components of if we need to do, I mean, Sorrell's going to have reporting, does that come on Greg, or is that something we have to do? What are their expectations from a government perspective? I mean, there's a lot of those things that we don't have questions answered at this point in time, and I'm sure there's more that Walker deals with that I'm not even mentioning.
And what we are doing versus Sorrell's doing are apples and oranges. Sorrell, their main goal is load reduction to the lagoon. If you have a project where you can reduce load, whether you're a homeowner that wants to do a septic system upgrade, a package plant for a trailer park that's adjacent to the lagoon, you can get funding for that. That's a little bit different than what we're doing here with this flood mitigation project. Sorrell is looking for basically anyone who is going to do something to do load reduction to the lagoon. The state requirements for stormwater are pretty stringent, given that we are on the Banana River, which is considered outstanding Florida waters. And it's also now, well, it has been for a long time, but an impaired water body. We've got some pretty significant load reduction requirements. I think it's on the order of, I think it's 85%, 90% load reduction for nitrogen and phosphorus. That's just to get a permit to do a stormwater project that's discharging into the Banana River Lagoon. So,
Do those backwash baffles also create restrictions?
yes, they can't. So if they are malfunctioning, yes. There was a backflow preventer actually directly in the center of Brevard Avenue, right in front of Jonathan's. Just a couple months ago, we took it out. Basically what had happened, it was old and it was rusting, and it would rust and it would get lodged shut. And then we'd get a call from Jonathan's and they were like, hey, can you guys come do something? The guys would come pop it open and the water would.
We had the same on the tugboats. We would just, when they'd rust shut, we'd just push them open and leave them open.
And then the other thing that we found out, which really prompted us to take it out completely.
Yeah.
Someone had dumped cement in the pipe, so the pipe was actually shallower now, so it would lodge in the cement. So, it is what it is.
So with this being a work session and us discussing the project and looking at the project, I think we still need a little bit more information. Probably need to reach out and get that, again, from a Sorrell base. What is the expectation? What do we need to present to you? And then wait for our city attorney to kind of help us with some of that, because I'm sure you would like to see that agreement or that request too, to see what's needed, and we don't have that. So I think those things are needed so that we can go and ask for some assistance.
I'd like to bring our engineering to give us another piece. He's also a PE that put all this together, and he feels very strongly that this is going to, that 40 acres that Walker was talking about here, he strongly feels that that's going to benefit all of that.
We would agree there. I mean, I don't think that's a disagreement. We're moving forward with that grant and moving, or requesting of the grant money. So none of that's changed until commission tells us to change that, but you've given us permission to go ask for those grant monies with the assumption of the $8.5 million project. Again, that's an option later in the future as to what you wish to do with that, but yeah, I mean, that's definitely a moving forward at this point in time.
So it'd be interesting to me, I think, and we kind of chatted about this on the side, to understand for the different options we have, kind of, and this is estimates, again, based on models. We're making guesses here. We're trying to do our best, but either in gallons per minute or something, what types of improvements are we getting for the money that we're spending with those projects? And then also, if we were thinking about that phased approach where we were doing a fix, check, with the first phase, would it be possible for us to look into either what they're looking at or something else that might allow us to, while we're taking the time to do a learning effort, to provide some either temporary relief or something to some of these properties that are impacted the most, so that we can take our time to do it right without them having to wait for us to get it done.
And the other thing is, you said you calculated the property, the runoff from their property would fill up their 24,000 gallons in a 1-inch rain event, okay? So if let's say October 1st, it was a 4-inch in, hour and a half time frame, and you saw the result, okay. So if the first inch got caught there, usually a regular old 2-inch rain event doesn't do that flooding. I mean, it actually fills up parts of the parking lot, the edges, the drains. It does flow. It goes around the corner a little bit. It doesn't come over the gratings, rushing down from the streets. So you can handle that 2 inches plus the inch that went into that you calculated would go into this tank. So then the guessing game is what happens to the last inch? Is that gonna be the straw that breaks the camel's back, it's gonna flood the whole property again, or does that just mean it's gonna just come up in the lap of the doorsteps? So.
That it goes up and over, once we get to that point, it's gonna go up and over into those, what our engineer calls weirs by those storm drains, and it'll gradually go into the storm water system, which will be able to take it because it will not be inundated. What you saw is those drains are inundated. They're backed up for 20 minutes, maybe 15, maybe 30 minutes, but all the damage is done then in the building. Once that happens, all the damage is done, and then it all goes out. It all goes out very quickly.
What I was just trying to say is, if we did what you're suggesting in your project, and you caught that first inch,
Yeah.
and then while that first inch is being caught, maybe the first inch outside goes around and down the drains, and then second inch, and then you're just kind of wondering how's that third inch gonna handle it? And where you're saying it would weir out over
And then
back into the drains, but if it's already gonna run that way, then it would already be in the drains.
And if it takes an hour for it to drain, basically that could mitigate some of that hour, and then it'll have time
Right,
to
that
drain.
extra, catching the first inch.
We only flood when it comes over that driveway, when it comes off that road. We can handle our own water. 2-3 inches, we can handle that. When you get 4 inches and it's coming off that road, that's when it goes into the building. I don't mind if it goes on the parking lot, comes up right to my office, but when it goes into my office, I get a little nervous. It takes me weeks and weeks and weeks to clean that stuff out. I've got dehumidifiers going. This last event, it took us probably 3 weeks to get that cleared out, and all the drywall's got to come out. It's a mess. But if we can stop it, when that water's coming off that road, it goes into that swale all the way around that building and sits there. The rest of it, the 1 inch, 2 inch, whatever's coming in, we can handle that. That initial impact, it goes into that swale and stops there, and then that little bit of water comes in, we can handle that. We will not flood. And our project is ready to go. I mean, we can go through cost figures on our project, and it's minuscule compared to what we're talking about here. So I guess the sticking point is we need to show, and our engineer will do that, show that it benefits the rest of the community. I mean, these people across the road are crying when this happens.
Okay, you got, what did you say, $5,000 soil grant?
Yes.
And just go ahead to its public meeting, throw the number out there of what your estimate is and what it's gonna cost.
About
to do-
$100,000.
About $100,000
That'll take care of it.
to do his whole project. It's not like where he's asking for $1 million or $1.5 million or something.
In 6 months to a year, we can have it done. And it's probably sooner if we can get right on it. Because I've already started pulling things together. I've got the permitting. We've already.
Well, I'd just like to further consider it, if you guys would mind.
There's the greenhouse gas study.
I think it's important that Walker get to see the information and that it's brought to the city
I'd just
manager
like
to
to
discuss.
continue this.
Yeah.
I'll add it to the December 14th, that's your next meeting.
Okay.
I don't think he'll have anything for you by Thursday night,
No.
so obviously that's a meeting too. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that
And then
way.
you were trying to, I think it was on the agenda that we may not have the 14th meeting, we may have the 7th, depending on the way. you
So I
decide.
apologize, that's on Thursday night's meeting. Yes, I asked that we go from the 7th and the 21st and merge them to the 14th meeting to have one meeting for the month, but that's on this, that's
Yeah,
on Thursday
yeah,
night's
okay,
meeting.
Okay.
Sorry, I apologize.
No, that's all right.
Jumping the gun there.
That's all right.
Is there any more
We have to change our
information
charter for that?
that you're providing?
Say the first and third Thursday?
I think that's it on this topic. Any other
I don't
questions?
think the way it
Are there
reads
any
it, as
more
long as you have one
questions with the
meeting, I think we're
commission?
okay.
Is there any more questions or comments? Audience there? All right, staff reports, announcements.
Again, I think all of our information will be brought to you on Thursday night, so.
Any commission reports, announcements? I would just like to make a comment. We've had this happen a couple times, a few times really, where we come into meetings like this and it's pretty important for different reasons. But I've noticed that Becky has not been up to date on some of this stuff, and I would like to just ask that maybe we can include her on all of the, whatever is coming up, just to make sure that we're all on the same page, we don't have her saying, I'm not sure, I just looked at it
So
during the meeting.
that is 100% my fault. City manager told me last week you need to get with Becky. I've been going 5 million different directions, scrambling to get this presentation. Apologize to the commission, mayor, city manager, and the city attorney. That's 100% on me. She told me last week, and I've just been scrambling, doing a million different things. So that's,
Okay.
this particular situation is my fault.
Okay.
I apologize.
And part of our challenge is we work in email. We don't have a software system that the city attorney would have to look at each of the packages. So we work an email system. And so
Maybe-
that is something we're looking at, and I've spoken to
Maybe we
the
could
city
do
attorney in
like
reference.
what you do with the commission, you have a meeting with us each, each week or a couple weeks before we have the meeting. Maybe just give her a call a couple days before and just give her a brief, like you give us a brief, so that
That'd be
she
great.
she
We
knows.
can do that. Again,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, that would help me a lot.
Okay. All right, yeah, because, I mean, this is at least a few times now, so I just want to just make sure that we get everything